my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Are you ready to wake your inner goddess? This is Dr. Noah, 1/3 of your BYWG team. I have an exciting announcement. The full Getting to Goddess program is on summer sale for only $147. That's a savings of over $500. The direct link to save will be in the show notes. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, loyal BYWG podcast listeners. This is Dr. Noah. We wanted to make you aware of our never-before-featured Book of the Month, Product of the Month, and our first-ever course, Certification of the Month, for July 2018. Please keep in mind all the links, discount codes, and special offers for the book, product, and course will be listed in the show notes in iTunes, in our weekly newsletter, and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com at the Listen Now tab. Our book of the month is The Overfat Pandemic, Exposing the Problem and Its Simple Solution for Everyone Who Needs to Eliminate Excess Body Fat by Dr. Philip Maffetone. Our product of the month is the one and only Instapot. The Instapot Duo Plus 60 is a 6-quart, 9-in-1 multi-use programmable pressure cooker, slow cooker, rice cooker, yogurt maker, egg cooker, saute steamer, warmer, and sterilizer. Our certification course of the month is the Primal Health Coaching Program. As you know, both Dr. Mike and I are certified and love the course. The Primal Health Coach Program provides the most in-depth and up-to-date ancestral health education in the world, equipping you with an arsenal of well-informed alternative choices based on science and experience in order to best serve your clients' goals. Enjoy the upcoming podcast. Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I'm your co-host. Today our guest is Lindsay Taylor. As you know, Dr. Mike and I are both Primal Blueprint certified coaches, and hence we've had a great relationship with the entire Blueprint team. Lindsay, or should I say Dr. Taylor, co-wrote a great new book, the Keto Reset Instapot Cookbook. So I thought it would be great to have her on. So Lindsay, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let me do your bio and then we'll get started. I love this topic. I love food. I am a paleo, primal, keto cookbook junkie. So let's get started. Lindsay Taylor is the senior writer and researcher and the lead keto diet educator for the Primal Blueprint Enterprises. She was the chief recipe developer for Mark Sisson's New York Times bestseller, The Keto Reset Diet, and is the co-author, along with Sisson, of the Keto Reset Instapot Cookbook and the forthcoming The Keto Reset Diet Cookbook. An ultrarunner and Ironman triathlete, Lindsay's interest in the benefits of the primal lifestyle initially rose out of a desire to pursue her athletic goals in a healthy manner. Now as co-host of the Primal Endurance and the Primal Blueprint podcasts, Lindsay teaches athletes and non-athletes how to fuel their sports and their lives with nutrient-dense, healthy, low-carb foods. She also brings her expertise as a social personality psychologist to bear on the topics related to goal setting and mindset matters. Find Lindsay on Facebook, where she spearheads the popular Keto Reset and Primal Endurance communities, and on Instagram at The Useful Dish. Oof, that was a little harder than I thought. So our first question.
Well, my background's a little weird, so
it's
unusual, I should
it's
say.
It's extraordinarily diverse, which makes you an interesting person. So my first question, and it's the first question all our first-time guests get, is your story. How did Lindsay become the author, keto expert, ultra runner, etc. that you are today?
Yeah, it's been a weird 10 years in my life, man. So 10 years ago, I was finishing up grad school. I was an academic psychologist in training. I was at UC Berkeley getting my Ph.D. in social personality psychology. And I was supposed to go on to a university and, develop my own program of research and be a professor. And I decided that was not going to be my path, that the academic life was not going to be for me. So I was still working at Berkeley and I had a baby and decided to just walk away from academia entirely. And I took a few years off and had another baby and then just got this idea, and I truly don't know where this idea came from, that I was going to start doing triathlons, which was crazy because there was nothing in my history that said that this was a thing that I should do. Like I was a recreational swimmer, biker, not at all a runner. I'd done, I think, one 5K and one half marathon. I didn't train for it all, and it was a disaster in San Francisco. But I just got this idea. And so at the time, my family, my husband and I were already in the primal lifestyle. So my husband had been a fan of Mark Sisson back when it was just the Mark's Daily Apple blog, before Primal Blueprint was even published. So we had the very first copy of Primal Blueprint when it came out in 2009 or late 2008, maybe. We had Rob Wolf's book. We have a whole shelf of paleo primal books in our house. So we were already kind of living that lifestyle. And I have to say my husband is always ahead of me in terms of all the health stuff. So he was super into it. And I was like 65, 70% into it. And then when I started doing triathlons and got kind of hooked on them, and then started running because I needed a sport in the triathlon off season, I started really caring a lot about what I was putting in my body, like a lot more. And it was really the sports that were the catalyst for me to make that mental shift to really thinking about food as not medicine, but just food as health. And so that was 6 years ago. We just actually passed the 6-year anniversary of me doing my very, very first race. And the rest of that is kind of history. And then after a few years of being a stay-at-home mom, I was ready to go back to doing some sort of job outside the house. And I very serendipitously landed this job with Primal Blueprint, and it's been amazing.
It seems like a lot of the people that end up on that team just end up there serendipitously. Do you feel the same way or no? Because I do.
We're a really diverse team, and we're spread out all over not just America, but we have a bunch of Canadian coworkers, and Mark has, one of the cool things that Mark has done is just assembled this team of people who all just really care fundamentally about the primal lifestyle and really believe in it. And so we're not, geographically centralized. We're just kind of philosophically centralized. And so the team is great to work for. And I actually do live close to Brad Kearns, who's Mark's right-hand man and the co-author of the Primal Endurance book and the host of the Primal Endurance podcast. So Brad and I are kind of like this little island unto ourselves in Northern California where we get to do a bunch of the stuff we care about.
That's cool. That's good. That sounds great. I'm on the opposite coast. I'm in right outside of New York City in New Jersey. So a little bit of different lifestyle here. It's cold and rainy, and I'm not happy. Anyway, so keto and the Instapot are all the rage. How did this book come? It came together really fast, I assume, and it was quite a collaborative effort, I assume, as well.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully your listeners know a little bit about Mark, and that he published the Keto Reset Diet. It came out last fall of 2017. And that was a real passion project for him. And I had actually kind of been behind the scenes helping with the recipe development there, because I had been doing my own little keto experiment for about a year now, a little over a year. And my husband, like I said, he's always ahead of me on things. He was doing keto 3 years ago. And I was like, no, thank you. And then, of course, because he's always right, like he's always doing something and I'm always saying no and then doing it myself while he's moved on to something else. So I was already doing keto and loving it and feeling like it was working really well for me. So after the Keto Reset book came out, the original book, and was just really well received, and then we started this Facebook group, which now in 7 months has grown to 25,000 plus members. Our publisher actually came back to us and said, hey, Instant Pot is interested in doing a book, and it would be this, collaborative effort. And of course we were like, yeah, because I do all the cooking for my family, and my kids are now 4th grade and 1st grade, and they do 3 sports a year. And I'm just like the most typical suburban mom. So of course I have an Instant Pot and I use it all the time. So yeah, we are actually already working on the book that's going to be coming out in November, which is a companion cookbook for the Keto Reset Diet with just, I think we ended up with 150 recipes, and we just dropped everything and decided to do the Keto Instant Pot book first. And I brought on Layla, who is now the co-author on the book, Layla McGowan, and she's amazing and makes the most beautiful, delicious food. And yeah, we just spent a couple months just absolutely cranking it out. People who follow me on Instagram know that at one point, and for like 2 weeks at one point, I had 3 Instant Pots going in my kitchen nearly at all times. And it's been amazing. And this book has been super well received too. So it's been really exciting.
So, I have to tell you, I've been delaying my purchase of an Instapot. I I have a crock pot. It's basically the summertime, and I grill a lot. And I ordered the book, and as soon as I opened up the book and started looking through the recipes and how the Instapot actually worked, I ordered my Instapot, and I got 5 different accessories that you guys suggested. So I'm right on board. So the book is great. I love the recipes in it. I follow this lifestyle as well, and I'm looking forward to using it, and that's why I really wanted to have you on. So my next question is how can this book make the sometimes tricky switch from a high-carb endurance athlete to a fat-adapted, fat-burning beast that Mark Sisson talks so much about so often?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that a lot of the resistance, not just for athletes, but for non-athletes too, is just feeling like 2 things. One is just that paleo, primal, keto, all of it is hard. And also that they're giving up the foods they really like, right? And so, I mean, for me, the thing that I really try to emphasize when I'm talking to people who are kind of new to this whole scene is that the food is actually really delicious. It tastes better than bread or noodles. Like bread and noodles don't really taste like much. Like fresh baked bread smells great, and it tastes okay, but also bacon tastes really good. And Brussels sprouts cooked with bacon taste amazing, and steak tastes amazing, and roasted chicken tastes amazing. So, I mean, I think that a big part of it is just reinforcing to people like, oh, look, keto primal food is delicious. People think about it as just eating fat. And the way that we do keto, the kind of primal plus keto is how I think about it, is not just about eating fat. The fat is incidental to the food. And so I think people just need to see the pictures and see the inspiration and realize that, oh, this is not just fat. This is actual food. So for me, I always think about nutrients first. So when I want to help people learn how to eat this way, I always say, okay, food quality, ingredients, nutrients first, macros second. And so when you start to think about it that way, and you just start to think about the kinds of foods that you are not just allowed to eat, but encouraged to eat, it's like a complete mindset shift in terms of, I think what we think about is like a lot of deprivation, and this food is not deprivation at all. This food is amazing.
No, I agree with every single thing you said, and I tell this to my patients all the time: is that nutrient dense food tastes so much better than, like you said, bread or pasta. I mean, it's just and nutrient density is my prime focus all the time. I try to eat an enormously nutrient dense profile. And I was listening to the interview you did with Brad Kearns on your podcast about the book itself, just doing my homework, and you guys got into a little bit of a conversation about how you're not depriving yourself of vegetables. You are eating a ton of nutrient-dense vegetables, and it is a vegetable high diet. It's not just all eggs, bacon, fat, and egg yolks and cream, correct?
Right. Well, I think that's part of the confusion just in the keto world right now is that when you say the keto diet, that doesn't really mean anything, right? There are 70 keto diets. There are as many keto diets out there as there are people trying to teach people how to eat a keto diet. So it's not just this one monolithic thing. And so, one of our main purposes for writing these books is to show people a specific version of keto that is not just for weight loss, but is for total health. And, if athletes are using my books, and I hope they are, what I want for them is to really think about supporting their athletic goals by building their body better. I mean, no athlete, you can fuel off fat, certainly. And I, use the hashtag fat fueled athlete on social media and stuff all the time, but I'm not really fueling with coconut oil and bacon grease and sticks of butter. I'm fueling with, chicken thighs and salmon and roasted broccoli with olive oil and homemade Greek yogurt. And so those are the fats that are fueling me as an athlete. And I think that's why, when I started keto, I did not intend to stay keto for a long, long time. And I just genuinely feel my absolute best eating this way. And I'm still training for a half Ironman right now. I've trained for a marathon on keto. And it's because I'm not just eating fat for the sake of eating fat. I'm eating keto-friendly, primal-aligned foods that happen to also fit keto macros.
Right. Now, saying that, I assume you believe in the whole net, I don't even know if believe is the right word, but the whole net carb concept when you're doing keto. Is that a fair statement? I mean,
you mean in terms of what is an appropriate level of carbs for athletes? Is that the question?
Yeah.
My philosophy isn't really about, my philosophy is more similar to Brad's in terms of you need to eat and fuel the activity that you're doing. And your activity level and your personal needs in terms of health, sport, if you're coming at it from, say, like a place of type 2 diabetes, that trumps macros. So I think that we get a little too wrapped up in counting, and counting is important when you're learning how to eat this way. But for athletes, for people like the people in our primal endurance community who are asking their bodies to do things that are above and beyond the norm, I think that trying to wrap up your food in a set of rules that wasn't developed specifically for us is kind of a waste of time. I mean, and that's why I do focus on nutrient density. And I think it's, if you're going to look at your macros, I think you should be looking at your macros from a place of learning and self-experimentation, and not from a set of parameters that you're putting on yourself that you can't deviate from. So for athletes, I think we really don't know a lot yet. There's not a lot of, I would say there's no well-controlled studies that I know of where we say, okay, if your activity level is X, then an appropriate level of carbohydrate intake for you is Y if you want to be a keto athlete, right? We have this general understanding that athletes can get away with eating more carbs, but we really don't know yet if it's okay, the carbs should be timed in this way, and they should, it should be this much fiber, so net carbs matter in this way. And if you time them in this way around your workouts, then you can do this. We just don't know. All of this is, keto's so old, and it's also so new that really a lot of our evidence is anecdotal, and a lot of our training decisions and our eating decisions should be truly N equals 1. Because if you're trying to let other people dictate what works for you, we just don't have good data, and you're just going to end up frustrated by trying to dig into something that just truly doesn't exist.
Right, kind of like what Rob Wolf says, try something for 30 days and see how you feel and function, basically, and take it from there.
Well, exactly. And I also, endurance athletes especially are such a specific group. And, one of the reasons that Mark and Brad wrote Primal Endurance in the first place was because they were basically sick of telling people to stop doing chronic cardio and having people ignore them. But we have to go into this recognizing that we're doing something that's not natural. Yes, our ancestors could have run 26 miles if they had to, or 50 miles, which is my favorite distance. But the reality is that nobody probably was, except for under an extreme stressor, right? So we're already breaking the rules. So why are we worrying and stressing ourselves out if we're already willingly and happily breaking one set of rules and then trying to apply a whole different set of rules, right? So I'm not too worried about macros for myself as an endurance athlete. What I am worried about is giving my body all the building blocks it needs to help hopefully support all this crazy, crazy stuff I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody just skipped or just didn't hear exactly what you said, but a marathon is 26 miles, and you just said your favorite distance is 50 miles.
That's
Now,
correct.
I I've I've uh I've done several marathons and countless halves, but I never ever did I entertain the thought of doing any more than a marathon. How does that, where does that, just get off, we're gonna get off topic for a minute. Or where does that mindset come from?
How do you get to be that crazy?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
well, a couple things. So first of all, I'm not fast. Speed is not where it's at for me. And I actually, if just recently there was a podcast with Brad on the Primal Endurance podcast and Dr. Mark Cucuzella, and he was saying that maybe if you didn't develop speed as a young child, that maybe you're kind of never going to be fast as an adult. And I was like, oh, cool, that's me. That gave me a good excuse for being slow. So for me, the longer distances are good because my main athletic skill is in just not stopping. Like I can go for a long time and I just don't stop. So I will maintain the same speed for 9 hours. And so for the first 3 or 4 hours, it's not that impressive. But then when you get to mile 7 or 8, you're like, okay, I'm starting to pass people now. So that's fun. And then the other thing is there's just something very liberating about just you leave your house at 5 in the morning and you say, okay, I'm just going to run till dinner. And then you don't have to worry about it. You just know that that's your plan for the whole day is you're just going to keep moving your feet and you're going to eat and you're going to see some friends and you're going to, cause you usually have pacers on a long run like that. So you're going to pick up your friends at different spots along the way. You're going to see a bunch and you are fully prepared mentally, hopefully, that there's going to be dark periods where you wonder what you're doing. And then you just emerge on the other side. So for me, I like just going out and being like, well, this is what I'm doing today. And then you just start.
And how do you fuel yourself in that ketogenic style when you're running a run like that, 9, 10 hours?
Oh my gosh, this is okay. So I feel like right now, my constant refrain is like I'm trying to go to every mountaintop and shout that even if you are a low carb athlete or a fat fueled athlete or a ketogenic athlete, you need to fuel the activity you're doing.
Right. Yeah, I
And,
agree.
and so I feel a lot of frustration right now in the low carb athlete world that there is a competition to see who can eat the least before, during, and after exercise. And while I'm all about, challenging your body and challenging your fat adaptation system, I also think that we've lost sight of the fact that we have this basic physiology where we need calories. And we have a basic physiology where we have a certain amount of muscle glycogen and it will become depleted if you go at a high enough intensity and or for long enough out on the road or the trails or whatever. And so I wish I could just make everyone understand that being a ketogenic athlete and eating carbs are in no way mutually exclusive. So for me, what I do is I mostly still eat the same foods leading up to it, although I will eat a little bit more. And I might throw in like a half a sweet potato or something, but I don't do anything special to top up my glycogen stores before a race. And then I usually eat a small breakfast, and it's usually something like a hard-boiled egg and maybe like half a sausage. I've been experimenting with UCAN lately, which is like a slow-release starch that is a carbohydrate, and I've been liking that. So I've been experimenting with that. And then during the race, I carry my own nut butter is my favorite. I carry my own nut butter. I often carry something like avocado, like mashed up avocado, and I have these like refillable baby food pouches that I use. And then at aid stations, I will eat whatever sounds good. And that's usually, I'll eat bananas. They usually have cooked and cooled white potatoes that you can dip in salt. So I'll often have a potato. I will have liquid electrolytes like Tailwind or something that also has some carbohydrate in it. And so that's kind of my race plan. But then I also usually carry, for the second half of the race, a few gels. And I like Huma brand. That's just my personal preference. They're made with coconut water. And I do the gels partially for the energy and partially just to give myself a little treat for having already done, 36 miles and still having 14 more to go or something. So I am not at all dogmatic about, I only eat the exact same things. And if it's not on the Primal Blueprint food pyramid, it doesn't go in my mouth ever. A race day is a specific situation. And certainly you need carbs. If you're going to run for 12 hours, you probably need carbs. Now, is it possible to do it without carbs? Probably, but why? I mean, I'm already running 12 hours. Why would I want to make it harder for myself and feel miserable if I could eat half a banana and feel better?
Right. And how do you refuel your body afterwards? Is there a specific formula for that as well?
No. So I definitely am not the person who subscribes to coming to the finish line and then eating the junk food. I don't like that at all. I mean, I feel like I just put my body through so much. So why am I now going to put food into it that's going to make it even less healthy? So this is something that for me is actually a thing that I don't like about races, is coming through the finish line and then they give you, a sandwich or a burrito or like a hamburger on a white bun. So to me, actually, the thing I'm probably most dogmatic about is the post-race fueling. So I'm in a training group with, I have been training with the same group of people for about 6 years now. And our thing is that we always have kale salad at finish lines. So when I come through a finish line, somebody is going to hand me a kale salad, usually with beets and sometimes quinoa for food. So I'll usually do a Primal Fuel protein shake and a kale salad. And that's how I refuel immediately after a race. And I am very strict about that. So like I just did a sprint triathlon a couple weeks ago. So that wasn't like a huge thing. It was just, 2 hours out there. And then I came through the finish line and they had this kind of artisanal coffee stand and I had a coffee with some heavy cream. And then I went out and rode my bike a little bit more. And that was how I refueled after a race. So it is a huge benefit of when you eat this way that you don't need as many calories, you don't need to eat as much, but it's also a benefit when you learn that your body feels better eating these types of foods. And so for me, that's actually kind of like a type of food freedom is, I don't need to eat this junk after a race. This isn't a reward for me. And I feel like I probably recover better than some of my fellow athletes because I don't feel compelled to eat these things right after a race.
Yeah, I love the whole edit. Thank you for answering that question. Now, swinging back to the book, are there any recipes in the book that you absolutely love that are like your faves?
Yeah, so I love the creamy pork stew. I don't know why. That one just like gets me. The Brussels sprouts with pancetta, I love. And then I really like making the stuffed mushrooms in the book. But to be perfectly honest, like I use my Instant Pot mostly. I probably 80% of the time I use my Instant Pot. It's when I realize like, oh no, I don't have a plan. So it's like, what can I throw in the Instant Pot and have dinner tonight? Like the other night I put completely frozen salmon in there. Like I just went out to my deep freezer and I was like, dang it, I have to feed my children. And I was like, oh, frozen salmon. Great. Perfect. But yeah, my latest jam has been the Brussels sprouts in the Instant Pot. I've made that over and over and over and over. And that and the whole chicken in the Instant Pot is great. And the whole chicken in the Instant Pot, I should say, the one in the book is Brad's recipe. And Brad is well known for just going into the kitchen and just grabbing whatever he can find. And it's like, I picture it like the chefs from the Muppets where like food is flying in the air and then it's like doo-doo-doo. And then like every once in a while something amazing comes out and it makes it into one of our books. And that was the whole chicken in the Instant Pot was like that. But if anyone was going to try one recipe to start, let's see. It's a toss-up between the avocado soup. I'm going to go with the buttery herb mushrooms. I think the buttery herb mushrooms are the absolute favorite thing. That once when we were developing the recipes and that one came out, I was like, I emailed everyone and I was like, I have a winner.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, I don't know where to begin too. I'm gonna have to choose something and go with it for sure. So, are there any other tips that you would have for people who are making the switch to keto, or at the very least, a fat adapted lifestyle? Like what, and through your experience, what are some of the real nuggets of information that they need to know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, I do have nuggets. It's a little bit hard to answer because everyone is coming into this from such a different place.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've really seen a lot running the Keto Reset Facebook community. The rules for someone who's coming in with metabolic damage, type 2 diabetic, 150 pounds to lose, is really different from the person who is already a healthy weight, feels like they want to drop 5 more pounds, and is doing this because they, maybe have some underlying food sensitivity issues they're trying to resolve, versus someone like me who is generally healthy weight, feels good, and is really doing this for kind of health optimization and longevity reasons. But just in terms of some things that can help everybody, if you really want to be keto specifically, and I really want to emphasize that I don't think that everybody has to be keto to be healthy. I do think that Primal is healthy for everybody. I do think it's a good idea to check out keto and do the reset, once in a while. But I don't think that keto is the only game out there that makes sense for people. But if you do want to be keto, I think you just have to accept the fact that there's this learning curve. And the best way to tackle the learning curve is to weigh and track and measure your food, to put it in a food app. And it's super annoying and it's really tedious. And I don't like weighing and tracking my food. But keto is a really specific animal where you have to limit your carbs. And then you have to make sure you're getting enough calories from protein and fat. So if you don't collect the data, you really can't know if you're doing it right. And while there are lots of ways to do keto right, there are very specific ways to do it wrong. Obviously, eating too many carbs is the number one thing. So if you're going to do keto, you have to embrace the weighing and measuring and tracking for a while, just as a learning experience. I would love to see people be able to do that without seeing it as like a set of rules that they must adhere to. I'd really love if we could get people to dispassionately start measuring things and just see it as like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that when I thought I was eating 1 serving of macadamias, that was actually 3 servings, or whatever. So embrace that part of it, embrace the learning part. The second thing I would say that's really, really, really important is to recognize that keto, especially compared to something that's more of like a Whole30 or Primal or Paleo, that it does really, really matter your health status coming in terms of how you're going to respond and how well it's going to work for you. And so, the rules for keto really do differ. Whereas there's kind of, one set of Primal, one set of Paleo, one set of Whole30. And, maybe if you have food sensitivity, you might need to do AIP instead or something like that. But it's not like if you come to Primal and just start, cutting out the grains and the inflammatory oils, you can expect that people are going to respond a little bit more consistently in terms of just, having health improvements. Whereas keto is something that's like you're actually trying to achieve this specific metabolic state. There's this more measurable end goal. And so it's a little bit more fussy, frankly. And then the third thing I would say is that understand that it's not a contest to do everything at once. So the thing that I see the most tripping people up is what I call the keto harder approach. So you compare yourselves to other people's amazing results that you saw on Instagram, right? Like, oh, I went keto and I lost 75 pounds in 6 weeks. And it's like, no, they didn't. But anyway. And so, you feel like, oh, it should be working faster for me or better for me, or I should be feeling better already or whatever. And you're not getting the results you want. So instead of taking a step back and looking at, say, am I sleeping? How's my stress level? Am I eating enough food to fuel my body? What they do is they say, I'm going to do it harder. I'm going to cut carbs more. I'm going to cut calories more. I'm going to start working out. And I think that a big part of when people are struggling, it's because they're doing it in a way that's actually increasing the stress on their body, either because they are mentally stressed out about it, right? And I see a lot of mental stress around keto, especially more so than Primal. and or they're doing it in a way that causes physiological stress to their body. And the response that they come with is then they add more stress, and then they don't understand why it's not working. And keto harder is not the thing that needs to be done. Oh, and fasting, I should say. And then they start fasting, which fasting can be great if you're healthy and your body's ready for it, or it can be the thing that makes it even harder for you to succeed. So I think people need to be patient with keto, especially. And patience is really hard when a lot of people who come to keto are coming to keto because they're sick of feeling tired or sick or overweight, and they are told that keto will deliver these amazing results instantaneously. And it's like this miracle diet. And so when I'm here trying to ask people to be patient and let their bodies heal and see it as a learning experience and ease into it, man, it's a tough sell. It's a really tough sell. And if you're finding keto too hard, and I say this all the time, like there's nothing wrong with Primal. I think Primal's amazing. I think if I could make everybody in the world go on one diet, it would be Primal, not keto. So, embrace food as a thing that makes you feel amazing and not something to micromanage. And then micromanage it if you want to, but not because you think you have to be healthy. You do not have to micromanage to be healthy. At least most of us don't.
One final question, if you don't mind, about the actual Instapot. How do you know when you could put something, like you said, you put in frozen salmon? Like, are there any general rules on the few recipes that that call for berries? Could you use frozen berries, or can you put in a frozen salmon? Like, what is the general rule with using something frozen in the Instapot?
Oh yeah, you can definitely put in frozen things. So there are no rules for the Instant Pot. Understand that if you're putting in vegetables and stuff, they get mushy really fast. I mean, think about the Instant Pot as kind of like intense cooking. So yeah, you can put in frozen stuff. I do think if you're not comfortable with the Instant Pot and haven't used it a lot, follow recipes.
Right.
And I'm normally not a recipe follower in general, but even feeling really comfortable with my Instant Pot, the first time I make something, I will follow a recipe exactly because timing does matter. I mean, like the other day when I did do the frozen salmon, I got distracted and forgot to take it out, and it was a little overcooked, but it wasn't awful. So, it's not like if you leave something in a pan, it's going to burn. The worst thing that happens in the Instant Pot is it comes out a little overcooked and you're like, well, that could have been better. But I think that the Instant Pot is hard to guess with. Let other people do the work to come up with the timing and then just piggyback off their work and follow their recipes. That's my best advice.
So if you were to put like frozen salmon in the Instapot, how long are you gonna cook a couple pounds of frozen salmon?
So I put in 2 like fairly good sized fillets the other day, and I did 5 minutes. What I intended to do was 5 minutes of cooking and then like 3 minutes of pressure release and then open it up and see it. And I got the 5 minutes by searching. A previous time I'd made this, I searched the internet a bunch and looked at a bunch of different recipes, and 5 minutes was kind of like the middle time I came up with. What I actually did was 5 minutes and left it in there for like 20.
Okay.
I forgot it was in there. And it was still totally fine. But yeah, 5 minutes in the Instant Pot from totally frozen to cooked salmon is how you can do it.
Great, thanks. That'll be coming very handy in my
it's so handy. And you can do frozen chicken. Frozen ground beef is a little tricky. I don't really do frozen ground beef, but I just went to Costco and restocked all my frozen fish because frozen fish in the Instant Pot works super well.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely work to master that for sure. Now, I have one final question that I ask all of my guests. Mm-hmm. So, what is on a normal Lindsay day that you're not running for 10 hours? What does that look like from waking to sleep?
Oh man, I know that having a routine is something that like all the geniuses do, and that's supposed to be really awesome for you. And so I wish I could say like, I have this routine, and I get up and I greet the sun, and then I meditate and I do my stretches like Brad does in his bed in the morning. But that's not normally how it works. So normally how it works is that I have an incredibly conscientious fourth grader. Well, today's the last day of fourth grade for my kids. It's the last day of school. I have an incredibly conscientious fourth grader who wakes me up at 7:08 every morning. And we go downstairs, we make breakfast together, which is actually nice. I start my coffee because I love coffee. And normally I spend the first hour just getting my kids off to school, drinking coffee. I sit down and I do a little bit of work. One thing I do try to do every morning is I try to go out in my backyard and either water my garden or just stand there for a minute. I find that even just being outside for like 2 minutes in the morning makes such a huge difference. It's just breathing in some fresh air. And then I work while my kids are at school. And then when my kids come home from school in the afternoon, it's usually I do mom stuff. And then I usually start, because I'm always writing cookbooks lately, I usually start cooking at like 3:30. And I'm in my kitchen from 3:30 to 7:30. And then kids sports. And then I have an alarm set on my phone that goes off at 9:15. And I really try to not look at my computer after 9:15. And I have found that when I'm good about that, then I sleep better and I feel like I feel better. And actually, I've definitely noticed that if I respect the 9:15 alarm, which also means I go to sleep at a more reasonable time, right? So I'll be in bed by, 10. I actually feel like it makes a difference in my body composition. Like I feel like I look leaner when I go to bed at a normal time. Although my weight doesn't really change and I've basically had the same body composition for 5 years, I feel like I look different when I sleep better. So I really have been trying lately, especially again, because I got out of the habit, to shut off my computer at 9:15 and save all work stuff for the morning. And then, of course, in the day, I try to find time to training for a half Ironman. One thing I do want to say, though, is I almost never get up early to exercise. Again, same thing. I really, really, really protect my sleep time. So I do most of my exercising while my kids are at school or in the evening. And I know that's a big luxury because I work from home and that doesn't work for a lot of people. And so I'm certainly not trying to suggest that will work for everybody. But for me, because I do have that luxury, I maybe twice a month will get up earlier than 7 o'clock to work out, maybe. But since I don't have to, I prioritize sleep as my number one training modality.
Amen. You could say that a couple thousand more times for people to hear. Thank you very much. Would you come back on when the Keto Reset Diet book comes out?
Absolutely. That will be another exciting time. And then I actually have a third cookbook coming out, so I may be harassing you guys again for you guys can be like my number one cookbook supporters.
That's fine. We feature books all the time for like books of the month, and we have a whole network of books that we promote and support. So we'll be glad to have you on again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Lindsay. I really, really appreciate it.
Excellent. You guys have a great day.
You too. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer, and your co-host, and you're listening to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please share this with your friends and family and encourage them to subscribe on iTunes. The link for the book, the Instapod, and all things Primal Blueprint will be in the show notes and our weekly email that you can sign up for at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. Thank you, and as my oldest son Hayden says, be awesome and never unawesome. Thanks again.
Adorable.
Yeah, he's
so cute. All right, thank you.
Yeah, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye guys.
One, two, three, four, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling